Amelia had always enjoyed the quiet rhythm of her life at 64, her days shaped by a comforting blend of routine, books, and small pleasures, yet something about that rainy morning made her restless as she stepped into the local cafe, the warm scent of coffee and baked goods mingling with the soft patter of rain against the windows, and as she scanned the room for an empty seat, her eyes fell on a young man hunched over a laptop, his fingers drumming anxiously on the keys, his brow furrowed in frustration, a sight that stirred a mixture of curiosity and empathy in her, for there was something about his tense posture, the subtle way he pushed a strand of dark hair from his forehead, that made her want to reach out and offer kindness. She hesitated a moment, feeling slightly self-conscious, but then she reminded herself that life had taught her to take chances, to speak even when unsure, and with a gentle smile she approached him, asking softly, "Mind if I join you?" And Lucas, startled at first by the sudden presence of a stranger, older, confident, yet exuding warmth, looked up from his screen and blinked, unsure what to say, before nodding reluctantly, and in that instant, a quiet spark of connection ignited, invisible to anyone else in the bustling cafe, yet immediately felt by both. Amelia settled into the chair opposite him, placing her tea on the table and observing Lucas with curiosity as he returned to his work, trying to ignore the flutter in his chest at her presence, and soon small talk began, awkward at first but gradually flowing into genuine conversation, the kind that starts with trivial observations about the weather, about the cafe, about the books lining the shelves, and then slowly, almost imperceptibly, delves into more personal territory, and Amelia found herself telling stories of her life, the travels she had taken, the joys and heartbreaks she had experienced, the people she had loved and lost, the lessons learned over decades of living, while Lucas, in turn, shared his struggles with work, the loneliness he sometimes felt despite being surrounded by friends, the dreams that kept him awake at night, and the conversations moved effortlessly between laughter and silence, the kind of comfortable silence that wasn't awkward but filled with unspoken understanding. As the minutes turned into hours, Amelia noticed the way Lucas's eyes brightened when he spoke about things he cared about, the way he listened so intently when she shared a memory, and she felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling she hadn't anticipated, a connection that seemed to defy age, time, and logic. And Lucas, for his part, felt a pull toward her wisdom, her gentle humor, the way she seemed to understand not only the words he spoke but the emotions behind them, and though he had never imagined forming a bond with someone so much older than him, he found himself craving her presence, seeking her opinions, and treasuring the rare comfort she provided. The cafe grew busier, the soft murmur of other patrons fading into background noise as their conversation deepened, and Amelia realized with a thrill and a touch of apprehension that she was experiencing something entirely unexpected, a friendship, or perhaps something more, that felt immediate and profound, and yet she knew the world outside the cafe might not understand, might judge the bond purely by the number of years separating them. But for now, none of that mattered, for they had found a space in which they could simply be, free from assumptions and expectations. As the rain slowed and the sun began to peek through gray clouds, Lucas glanced at the clock, realizing he had spent far longer with Amelia than he had intended. Yet the thought of leaving made his chest tighten, and Amelia, sensing his hesitation, felt a pang of longing mixed with caution, knowing that the connection they had formed was fragile, delicate, and unlike anything either of them had encountered before. And she smiled at him, a quiet, knowing smile that spoke volumes without words, and Lucas smiled back, a mixture of nervousness and relief, the kind of smile that hinted at unspoken possibilities, the start of a bond that would challenge them, inspire them, and perhaps even transform them in ways neither could yet comprehend. As Amelia gathered her things to leave, she felt a reluctance to go, a desire to linger in that moment, and Lucas, though he didn't fully understand it, felt a strange sense of anticipation, a hope that their paths would cross again soon, for something significant had begun, a connection that neither age nor circumstance could easily diminish. And as she stepped out into the fresh, rain-scented air, the cafe door closing softly behind her, both of them carried with them a quiet exhilaration, a gentle stirring of emotion, a promise that this unexpected meeting was only the beginning, a prelude to a story that would unfold in ways neither could predict. And somewhere deep down, Amelia and Lucas both knew that life had conspired to bring them together at that precise moment, that chance encounters could lead to profound bonds, and that even in a world quick to judge by appearances, hearts could recognize what truly mattered, a subtle, unspoken truth that would guide them through the coming days, weeks, and perhaps even years, as they navigated the extraordinary connection that had begun on that rainy morning, a connection that would challenge their assumptions, awaken long-forgotten desires, and create a shared story full of laughter, longing, and gentle wonder, leaving both of them forever changed before they even realized the journey had truly begun. After that first rainy morning, Amelia and Lucas found themselves drawn together in ways neither could have anticipated, as if the universe had subtly nudged them toward one another, and soon their meetings became frequent, spontaneous, and utterly absorbing. Some days they met at the same cozy cafe where their story began, sipping coffee while sharing stories of triumphs, setbacks, and the quiet victories that often go unnoticed, while on other days they wandered through parks, the crisp air brushing their faces as they talked about dreams, regrets, and the peculiar way life seems to conspire to bring certain people together at the most unexpected times. And as they walked along tree-lined paths or sat on worn benches overlooking small ponds, a gentle intimacy grew between them, subtle but undeniable, a connection that neither age nor circumstance could diminish, and Amelia found herself laughing more freely, feeling lighter than she had in years, while Lucas felt a comforting warmth he couldn't quite describe, a sense that someone truly saw him, understood him, and appreciated not only his mind but the quiet parts of his soul that often went unnoticed. And with each passing conversation, the bond deepened, evolving beyond simple friendship into something tender, fragile, and profoundly moving, a mixture of admiration, longing, and emotional resonance that made their time together feel like a secret refuge from the outside world, a safe space where both could be vulnerable without fear of judgment. Amelia noticed the way Lucas would sometimes pause mid-sentence, as if weighing words that were too significant to say aloud, and she sensed in him a mixture of hesitation and desire, a nervous excitement that mirrored her own, while Lucas became increasingly aware of how her presence shifted something within him, calming the restlessness he had carried for years, filling it with a quiet curiosity, admiration, and a longing that he didn't fully understand yet. And their conversations ranged from light-hearted topics, like the quirks of the cafe staff or amusing childhood memories, to deeper reflections about loss, aging, ambitions, and the fleeting nature of time. And through it all, they discovered a shared appreciation for beauty in small moments, the way sunlight danced on wet leaves, the comforting aroma of baked goods, the subtle music of laughter and quiet reflection. And these shared experiences became threads weaving a tapestry of emotional connection that neither of them had anticipated but both cherished deeply. One evening, as twilight bathed the city in warm, golden light, Lucas invited Amelia to a quiet walk along the river, the soft lapping of water against the docks creating a rhythm that mirrored the unspoken tension between them. And as they walked side by side, their hands brushing occasionally, a delicate electricity sparked each time their skin touched, a mixture of anticipation, uncertainty, and longing. And neither spoke, for words seemed inadequate to capture the emotion swelling between them, the unspoken understanding that something important, delicate, and rare was taking root. Yet both also sensed the fragility of it, knowing that the outside world would never comprehend the depth of what they shared, and that societal expectations, casual judgments, and whispers of disapproval could all threaten the bond they had nurtured so carefully. Amelia, who had lived through decades of life's unpredictability, felt a thrill of excitement tempered with caution, realizing that despite her age and experience, her heart could still be stirred by genuine connection, by laughter that resonated deeply, and by the subtle magnetic pull of someone who saw her not as a person defined by years but as a soul worthy of attention, respect, and affection, while Lucas, caught between youthful urgency and the dawning awareness of something profound, wrestled with emotions that were confusing, tender, and exhilarating all at once, emotions that made him simultaneously hopeful and anxious, exhilarated and hesitant. And yet he found he could not resist the gravitational pull of Amelia's presence, the way she listened with patience, the way she smiled with understanding, and the way her eyes seemed to reflect not only his words but the feelings behind them. Over time, their connection grew beyond words into subtle gestures and quiet moments, the small things that communicate trust, desire, and affection in ways language cannot fully capture. A hand lightly resting on a shoulder during a moment of shared laughter, a look that lingered a beat too long, a careful choice of words that revealed concern, admiration, or the hint of longing. And in those gestures, Amelia and Lucas discovered a deep emotional resonance, a sense that they were becoming integral to each other's lives in a way that transcended age, circumstance, and expectation. Yet, with this closeness came an undercurrent of tension, a recognition that the feelings blossoming between them were complicated and could be misunderstood, that the outside world would question the nature of their bond, and that stepping too far too quickly could jeopardize the trust and friendship that had become their anchor. And this tension created moments of hesitation, pauses in conversation, and glances that held unspoken questions, all of which only added layers to the emotional richness of their connection, making every encounter feel alive with possibility and risk, and every goodbye weighted with the quiet ache of longing. One afternoon, Lucas confided in Amelia about his struggles at work, the pressure to succeed, and the sense of isolation he often felt despite a network of friends and colleagues. And Amelia, drawing from decades of experience, listened with empathy, offering insights, encouragement, and reassurance that went far beyond casual advice. And as she spoke, Lucas felt a profound gratitude and admiration, realizing how rare it was to find someone who could understand his challenges without judgment. And Amelia, in turn, was touched by his vulnerability, the honesty with which he revealed fears and hopes, the way he trusted her with pieces of himself he seldom shared with anyone else. And in that moment, the connection between them deepened, becoming more intricate, more emotionally entwined, and more compelling. As weeks turned into months, their friendship, and whatever unspoken feelings lay beneath, continued to grow, marked by shared routines, spontaneous adventures, and moments of quiet reflection. And Amelia began to recognize a warmth in her heart she hadn't felt in years, a tender longing for presence, conversation, and subtle intimacy that Lucas provided effortlessly, while Lucas, increasingly aware of the depth of his attachment, wrestled with the balance between admiration, affection, and the societal implications of his feelings for someone decades older. Yet he could not ignore the pull, the magnetic resonance that drew him toward Amelia with every passing day. Then one evening, as they strolled beneath the amber glow of streetlights shimmering off wet pavement after a sudden drizzle, Lucas, caught between hesitation and courage, reached tentatively for her hand, his fingers brushing against hers, a gesture charged with meaning. And Amelia's heart raced, torn between the wisdom of restraint and the exhilaration of surrender, the unspoken acknowledgement of mutual longing and connection filling the space between them. And for a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop, leaving only the quiet acknowledgement that something extraordinary was unfolding between them, a bond that defied convention, a friendship blossoming into something tender and profound, yet still fragile and uncertain. And just as their hands intertwined in that delicate, electric touch, Lucas's phone buzzed with a message that yanked him abruptly back into the reality of life, a reminder that obligations, schedules, and the judgments of others still existed outside this shared bubble of emotion, leaving Amelia standing under the streetlight, her fingers tingling with the memory of their brief contact, her mind swirling with anticipation, hope, and uncertainty, and Lucas walking beside her, heart pounding, aware of the weight of his emotions, the depth of the bond forming, and the difficult choices that awaited them. And in that moment, both realized that their connection had grown into something neither could ignore. A story of hearts bridging decades, a delicate and beautiful emotional landscape that promised joy, longing, and the complicated thrill of stepping into a relationship that the world might not understand, yet one that was undeniably real, alive, and profoundly moving. And as they parted that night, each carrying the echoes of the other in their hearts, they knew the coming days would test, challenge, and perhaps even redefine the boundaries of friendship, desire, and trust, leaving them on the edge of discovery, on the cusp of something extraordinary, and fully aware that the bond they had nurtured so carefully was only beginning to reveal the depths of its power, its tenderness, and its ability to transform their lives forever. The days following that rainy night were charged with unspoken tension, a mixture of anticipation, longing, and subtle anxiety that neither Amelia nor Lucas could fully articulate, as though the bond they had nurtured over weeks of conversations, walks, and quiet moments had grown into something undeniably powerful yet fragile. And every interaction carried a new weight, a heightened awareness that the connection between them was evolving into something deeper, more profound, and more complex than either had anticipated. And as they continued their routine meetings, whether at the cafe, wandering along the park paths, or sitting by the lake with the sunlight glinting off the rippling water, they found themselves increasingly aware of the subtle ways their presence affected each other. The way a glance could speak volumes, the way a touch could send a ripple of emotion through their hearts, the way silence itself could become a language of trust, longing, and shared understanding. And Amelia, with decades of life experience, recognized the tenderness in Lucas's gaze, the slight hesitation in his gestures, the gentle ways he tried to bridge the emotional distance between caution and desire, and she felt a thrill of excitement mixed with caution, a sense of rediscovery of emotions she thought had long since settled into quiet routines, while Lucas, though younger, felt the growing intensity of his feelings, an admiration for her wisdom, beauty, and strength that went beyond surface appearances, and a longing for emotional closeness that often left him both exhilarated and nervous, as though walking a line between youthful passion and the gravity of a connection that demanded patience, respect, and careful nurturing. Then came a day that would mark a subtle turning point, when Lucas invited Amelia to a local art exhibit, knowing her love for paintings, colors, and the way visual expressions could mirror emotions too complex for words, and as they walked through the gallery, surrounded by canvases filled with emotion, texture, and light, a sense of quiet intimacy enveloped them, the ambient hum of visitors fading into a soft backdrop as they shared reflections on the pieces, exchanged thoughts on life, beauty, and the passage of time, and with every word, every gesture, the depth of their connection became more apparent, their hearts quietly acknowledging that what they felt for each other could no longer remain only in the realm of subtle glances and tentative touches. Amelia noticed how Lucas lingered near a painting depicting two figures walking along a rainy street, their hands almost touching, and she felt a flutter in her chest, a recognition of their own story reflected in art, while Lucas observed Amelia's expressions as she studied a portrait, her eyes bright with curiosity and insight, and he realized how much he valued her perspective, her presence, and the quiet strength she brought into his life, and in that shared space of observation, reflection, and mutual appreciation, they discovered a rhythm between them, a silent communication that went beyond words, filled with warmth, understanding, and longing, and as Lucas tentatively reached for her hand in that softly lit gallery, Amelia felt a rush of emotions, a mixture of caution, excitement, and longing, the gentle friction of restraint and desire, the acknowledgement that whatever step they were about to take carried significance, risk, and the potential for something transformative, and she responded by allowing their fingers to intertwine, their hands fitting together as if they were always meant to, a small but electric gesture that spoke volumes about trust, connection, and hearts daring to bridge decades of experience and youth, creating a fragile but undeniable bond that defied convention, expectation, and the quiet whispers of judgment that might exist outside their private moments. After the gallery, they walked under the night sky, the streets glistening from earlier rain, lights reflecting softly on wet pavement, and conversation flowed easily yet carried the weight of unspoken feelings, as if each word, each laugh, each glance was laden with meaning, and Amelia found herself reflecting on how unexpected it was to meet someone who could awaken emotions so tender, so vibrant, and so unanticipated, while Lucas marveled at the depth of understanding, patience, and warmth she offered, qualities that he had never encountered in anyone else and that made him both cautious and daring in his affections, aware that their bond, while growing stronger every day, remained delicate, vulnerable, and requiring careful cultivation. In the following weeks, their relationship, still largely undefined, blossomed through shared experiences, small acts of kindness, and the quiet intimacy of presence, as they spent afternoons cooking together, exchanging favorite books and exploring small, hidden corners of the city, each interaction reinforcing the emotional resonance that had first sparked on that rainy morning, and both Amelia and Lucas began to recognize that their connection was not merely a friendship, but something more profound, a blend of admiration, desire, and emotional closeness that, while complicated by age and societal expectations, felt undeniably real, meaningful, and transformative, as if they were discovering a language of the heart that existed outside conventional definitions, and this realization both thrilled and unsettled them, leaving their emotions teetering between joy, apprehension, and the exhilarating uncertainty of what lay ahead. Amelia, in particular, felt her heart stirred in ways that reminded her of youthful longing yet tempered by the wisdom of her years, a recognition that connection, attraction, and emotional intimacy could manifest at any stage of life, bringing both excitement and the awareness of consequences, while Lucas, navigating the complex terrain of emotions he had rarely experienced with such intensity, found himself captivated not only by her presence but by the sheer depth of feeling she evoked, the way she encouraged reflection, tenderness, and openness in him, and in moments of quiet reflection, he realized how much he had grown emotionally and mentally, simply through knowing her and engaging with the world through her perspective. And as they shared these realizations, a sense of mutual understanding and acknowledgement deepened their bond, creating a space where vulnerability could be expressed safely, emotions could be explored honestly, and hearts could meet in a way that transcended external judgments. One evening, as autumn painted the city in warm hues, they returned to their favorite park, the benches under the golden trees, a familiar sanctuary, and Lucas finally voiced the thoughts he had wrestled with for weeks, speaking softly about the emotions he felt, the admiration, longing, and affection he had tried to contain, and Amelia listened, her own heart echoing his sentiments, understanding the courage it took for him to speak them aloud, and in that moment, they reached a silent agreement that, while the path forward might be unconventional, challenging, and subject to the scrutiny of the world, their hearts had found each other, a connection that could not be ignored, diminished, or dismissed, a bond forged through patience, shared experience, and a willingness to embrace emotions that defied easy categorization. And, as they held hands under the canopy of autumn leaves, each understood that love in its purest form was not bound by age, expectation, or convention, but by the courage to acknowledge its presence, the patience to nurture it, and the willingness to step forward together into uncertain yet promising territory. As the weeks turned into months, Amelia and Lucas continued to explore the boundaries of their relationship, balancing intimacy with respect, longing with patience, and connection with the realities of life, their hearts growing intertwined with each encounter, each shared secret, each moment of laughter, and each silent, meaningful glance. And though challenges arose, friends questioning, societal norms whispering, internal doubts flaring, they found strength in the bond they had built, the mutual understanding and emotional depth that had been carefully cultivated, and the knowledge that, whatever the world thought or said, the truth of their feelings was undeniable, profound, and transformative, giving them courage, hope, and the thrilling sense that life had brought them together for a reason. Finally, one crisp evening, as the sun set behind the city skyline, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, they sat together by the lake, fingers intertwined, hearts beating in quiet harmony, and for the first time, they allowed themselves to acknowledge fully what had been growing between them all along, the gentle, profound, and life-affirming realization that their love, rooted in friendship, respect, understanding, and shared experience, was real, resilient, and worth pursuing despite age, expectations, or uncertainty. And as they leaned toward each other, the cool breeze carrying the scent of the water and fallen leaves, Amelia and Lucas smiled, knowing that their story was just beginning, a narrative of hearts daring to connect, to trust, and to love in a world that might not fully understand, yet a world that they were ready to face together, hand in hand, hearts open and spirits intertwined, ready to embrace the next chapter of their extraordinary, unexpected, and deeply moving journey.